let me know.
Okay. Does it say that it's recording on your end?
Oh yeah, it actually does. Oh my gosh.
Okay.
I'm so first. Okay.
Perfect. Okay. Just want to make sure I got it.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. This is my very first interview, which I'm super excited about because it's one of my really good friends, Dave. Dave, would you like to take a second and introduce yourself?
I absolutely would. So I'm David Riddick. I'm from Lancaster, PA. I actually know Sally. Me and Sally were actually co-workers at the same fitness company. About a year and a half ago, 2 years ago?
I think we started working together in 2016.
Oh my gosh, yeah. So it has.
I know,
So
like
it's
4 years ago.
yeah. So it's been some time. It's like so crazy. Actually, I always forget. I always got married the week before I actually got hired, which is actually pretty funny because I that's how I actually remember how many years it's been. Don't tell my wife. Um, and so it's crazy to think it's been that long already. So time
I
really does
know.
fly, especially
I know.
with
I,
everything.
I always think about it. I'm like 2016, that feels like forever ago, but that's when I started working in Mannheim
Yeah.
and it's crazy. But anyways, keep going. So
Just a little bit more about myself, I guess, to your audience. I was born in Lancaster, PA, raised here. I was a certified personal trainer for 4 years. Really, I'm trying to think if I have anything other interesting. I'm married to my beautiful wife of 5 years. We have two children together, one who is 7, one who is 1.5 and a terror, and we have one on the way as well. So.
yay, that's so exciting.
Yes, yes. It is until she's going into the third trimester, and she can't really sleep a whole lot, which means then I don't get to sleep a whole lot. So it's
Right.
definitely there's definitely some pushback there. So
I know. At least it's like, is it a blessing? I mean, to have like this pandemic, being pregnant, I can only imagine what it's like. Is it a blessing that you get more family time, like while she's going through this? Like you can kind of be more hands-on to support her, or how does that work?
yeah, so it's to give some more background on Paloma, she actually works at a school, so it's actually been very convenient as the school has been shut down due to the
Hmm.
pandemic for a little while. So she's actually been working from home. I work a second shift, so it's actually been really nice. My daughter's also doing homeschool as well, cyber school, I'm sorry. So it actually is really nice because we do get to spend a lot of time together, which is one thing that is big for our family, at least, just trying to make sure that we spend as much quality time together as we can. So that way, things are just like a lot more fun. We're inseparable. We hate being apart from each other. So it's actually, for our family, it's actually this whole pandemic, despite everything going on, it's actually been kind of convenient for us. So
Yeah, I feel like I've heard a lot of people say that, and it's like it's a really cool thing. And one thing that I try and remind myself is like I live with my parents, and I'm just like I haven't spent this much time with them. Even though we lived together before, I was never actually with them spending, like you said, quality time
yeah,
in ever. And it's like when will we ever get this time with our families again, whether it's like your parents or your wife and your kids and stuff.
yeah,
And when you look at it like that, it's like it really is such a blessing. And especially like you said, for your family dynamic, that's how you guys thrive.
yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, no, it really is. I would probably question you, like, how do you feel, especially being out of college and like being back home now and like actually spending time with your parents who I don't know if you have any other siblings that are also in the house, but like, how does that dynamic work?
Yeah, I mean, it's honestly a blessing also, just because if I had lived alone, granted, if I lived alone, I probably would have just came back here anyways, so I didn't have to quarantine alone,
Yeah, absolutely.
which I've heard like a lot of people, around our age kind of doing, like that live somewhere, especially people who live in the city and then they're like bound to their apartment.
Yeah,
But so it has been a blessing in that sense, but like so I've been here a year and a half, and my plan was to move out like over this past summer, but then with pandemic and stuff that kind of got put on pause, and like work being so questionable. Um so it's kind of getting to the point, and my parents know this, it's getting to the point where I'm like, okay, like
yeah,
I'm ready to kind of take that next step. And it really has been nice. And we've had like a lot of laughs, but I feel like I find myself more and more spending more time in my room and just kind of like, or in my office, just to kind of like have my own space. And they respect it, and they
yeah,
understand that it's just kind of natural. But I try and just be thankful, because what 27-year-old gets to spend so much time with your parents, even if you do live close, like usually work, family, relationship, kids, whatever gets in the way. And there is not a lot of that.
Yeah, no, no, seriously. It definitely probably can work both ways. So
Yeah, yeah. And just like, since like it's not like we can see our friends or anything even, so it's like nice to just have like that built-in friends.
yeah,
um,
exactly.
and you know, like my mom and I are so close, so we just like laugh and we have fun. So
Your mom is the absolute cutest, let me say. Like she is
I,
just like all of like the stories that you post on like social media and stuff. It's just like I feel like I know Amy. Like I
I
feel
know,
like I'm like wholeheartedly like she's my mom too. I'm like, oh, there's Amy. Glad to see she's doing all right.
I know. I keep telling her, I'm like, Mom, you need to make. She has an Instagram and she posts, I think, like once in the last 5 years. And I'm like, you need to make an Instagram and have it be like a behind the scenes and show like all the funny stuff that I ask you to do, or like make it like not like a meme account, but you know what I mean? Like just like
Yeah,
kind of like making fun of me. I'm like, it'd be so funny.
that would be really funny too.
I
Oh,
know. But I we'll see. I don't she's like, I don't like to post. But
all right, mom. Okay, okay. Jeez,
yeah,
influencer over here.
I know. So like kind of like we just talked about before I started recording, just so people who are listening know, my intention with these interviews, quote unquote, isn't really to be an interview. Like people who know me know that I'm like the least formal person ever. Um and so I want it to be more of a conversation, and like whatever the topic is over the course of these interviews, maybe it's, education, maybe it's just kind of like experience and learning about our stories, and maybe, it's just for people to laugh. So I do have like a couple topics that I want to touch on, especially ones that like in our friendship are very important. So I thought I would start with fitness,
Yeah.
because that is how we know each other. And that is something that a lot of our conversation revolves around fitness. And yeah, I don't have a specific agenda, but so Dave wrote my most recent program that I've been doing.
Rest in
And
peace. Rest in
I
peace.
guess I want to hear, what is your philosophy when it comes to health, fitness? I know that's such a broad question,
Yeah.
but like give the listeners a little bit of background, because they know kind of where I stand. So let's hear about you.
Yeah. So, for me personally, fitness has always kind of been a strong regimen. I've been in a weight room. I would like to say more consistently for the last 15 years, but it's been on and off just a little bit there. But I had been introduced into the weight room for football for high school when I transitioned my freshman year at Hempfield High School, and that was a big thing for me was just trying to navigate and try to understand what is exercise. I knew it was beneficial. I think a lot of people do when they first start up, but you don't really know what exactly you're doing. You just know you see people moving things, so you think like, oh, let me also go move things. So that's probably how it was for the better half of the rest of my high school career. After that, after when I moved into community college and then started getting ready for trying to transition and transfer to college, I really wanted to make sure that I kept my strength up and was ready to go when it was time to transfer. Uh, so I did a lot more studying by myself, essentially. I started really like reading a lot of books, reading a lot of magazines. A lot of it was all bodybuilding, as I'm sure that's how everyone starts.
Bodybuilding.com.
Exactly. Like you go to T Nation, you go to bodybuilding.com, like you read those kind of things. And over time, I just became just more interested in it. I was in a weird place when I was in community college because I didn't know, what specifically I wanted to major in at the time. And I think a lot of people can, relate to that and struggle with, what do I want to do? So,
Mhm.
as a young kid, trying to, figure out my ways and, learn what adulthood was like, I did really pick up a huge interest in fitness. So, and it was something that I was already doing. Like I was already exercising, I was already doing strength training, I was doing cardio, like really, it just made sense. And when I was part of Gold's Gym back in, oh gosh, 2011, 2012, I want to say. And I'd went from my high school weight was about 165. I went from 165 to about 185 in over a year. Um, and that was a big transition for myself. And I actually started getting people, noticing, like, oh man, like, what are you doing? Like, you look totally different. And I was like, oh, I just, studied, and, I just kind of, made things work. And the biggest part of exercise and fitness for myself, even to this day, is just consistency, just being able to, continually keep doing it in, doing it out. As you know, it's not easy. Most days of the week, it's actually, people are like, oh, how do you stay motivated? I'm like,
You don't?
I don't, not even a little
Just
bit.
go.
Yeah, you just got to go do it. So once I started getting noticed, by other people, and started giving advice to people, I was like, this is something that, I could be pretty good at, I think. So that's when I decided to actually just go and get my certification as a personal trainer, while I was playing football for a semi-professional team. I actually got injured while I was playing football, sadly, so I had to kind of put my football dreams on hold for a little bit. But I got a pretty good prime opportunity at two different gyms before I got to Powertrain, where we worked together, and the rest is pretty much history. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's definitely hard. It's definitely hard, to say the
Yeah.
least.
Well, I think you touched on, I mean, a lot of really good points, but one, especially consistency. And I feel like the people that will be listening to this or watching this are going to be, like you and I, like we just don't have, any super extreme goals one way or the other. We just want to be healthy, and, we want to look good, but like, it's just more so like something to do because we know we should be doing it, and
Absolutely.
because it makes us feel good. So I think, yeah, the consistency part is so important to me. And I feel like there's so many people out there that just don't know what to do. And I feel like a lot of times, like when I post about fitness stuff or when I talk about fitness stuff, people are like, what's like a basic workout you can do? And honestly, like, I feel like it not that it doesn't matter. It
Yeah,
does
yeah,
matter. Like, but
yeah.
if you just want to start, just start. And like, I appreciate like people being personal trainers, fitness instructors to help guide people who don't know what they're doing, because I feel like there's just such a lack of education out there and a lack of knowledge, and and it makes me sad because a lot of people don't know where to start. So like, what is your advice for somebody who is just like either they don't know where to start, or they like can't keep up with a specific program, or like just kind of are lost?
Yeah. So this is a pretty easy one to answer. Here is really just, no matter what your goals are, if you're starting up in 2020 and like this is your year, like this is the comeback year, we're taking off the COVID weight, or we just really want to get into the shape of things. And what I would say to those people is basically just start somewhere. Just get into a gym. It's not very difficult to get on a cardio machine, get onto a treadmill, and just get there. Just start moving. When it comes to the strength training side of things, if you have any kind of background, just start with that. Just get into the gym, because the biggest thing that people, and this comes back to the whole education thing, is the thing that people don't understand is when you first get into the gym, if you haven't been there for a while, no matter what you do, you're going to be sore, like no matter what. So it kind of what you said, it kind of doesn't matter. It's
Yeah.
kind of true. There's some truth in that, because it could be a workout for myself. I can give you something perfectly designed, tailored specifically to your needs and your goals. You're not going to feel any different than if you just did it by yourself and went and just did, strength training or cardio. Like, you're going to be sore either way. And that's kind of the big thing about the consistency. It really does build like a nice strength base, if you will. So it kind of, builds a little bit of resilience over time. So that way, then you're ready for that next step. It's very progressive when it comes to exercise and fitness. It's one step at a time. Once you are consistently doing the small things right, then we can move to a different, program. We can move to a different type of training. Like, we can do so much with that. So, but the very first thing I can say, if anything, is just be consistent. That is the big thing that, separates the people who see their goals and don't see their goals, especially coming up in hopefully 2021. We see a lot more people, hitting those goals and seeing, how important consistency really is.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think another thing too is that like people, there's so much information out there that people are like, well, what's right? Like, am I supposed to do CrossFit? Am I supposed to do Orange Theory? Am I supposed to power lift? Am I supposed to bodybuild? Am I supposed to just run?
Yeah.
And I think that's one thing where it's like there's almost too much information out
Yeah.
there for,
Yeah.
again, for like the average fitness person that just wants to be healthy.
Yeah.
Um,
Exactly.
and I feel like a lot of people struggle with that. And so like my advice to people is always like, do what you like. And that goes back to the consistency part, because like for me, I like CrossFit. I have no interest in doing CrossFit. I have no interest, and not, that's a whole nother topic.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
But
right. I was about to say.
that
Not,
that's just the first thing that came to my head.
yeah.
Um, I'm not necessarily saying it's bad or it's wrong,
Yeah.
but like if I was like, well, I have to do CrossFit because that's the only way I'm going to get results, I would never go.
Yeah.
Or if you told me like, oh, you have to run 5 miles every single day in order to be fit, I would be like, okay, I don't want to.
Yeah. I guess that's it then. We're calling it.
Yeah, I guess my fitness journey's over. And so that's like one thing that I always try and tell people too is like, no matter what the right thing to do is, even if strength training is right or cardio is right or whatever, just do what you're going to actually do.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that's like kind of like diets and stuff too, is like people are like, well, I need to do keto or low carb or whatever. And it's like, okay, well, how long are you going to last on that? Like
Yeah.
2 weeks, 1 month. And then what happens when you stop? You're going to gain all that weight back.
Exactly.
Not that I believe in diets anyways, but it's like, I just like that's something that I always try and tell people is like just do what you like. Like if you don't like to run, don't run.
Yes, exactly. And that's another thing too, is just, a lot of individuals who we have worked with, we've worked with a varied range of ages.
Mhm.
If you're dealing with any kind of injuries or any kind of ailments, anything that is, inhibiting you from exercising, like those things, I would say definitely take to a professional at that point. I would always, recommend taking the professional route either way. But ultimately, like if you have any kind of aches or pains or you feel some kind of discomfort, like please go see a doctor, see a physical therapist, talk to
Mhm.
a personal trainer, like get the professional help, because those people are there to hopefully help guide you in the right direction. So that way you don't have, lingering issues, you don't end up injuring yourself. So you lose that consistency. So I will say, here's my plug for all the professionals, just really, get that help, because it really is, it's an investment in your health, but ultimately, at the end of the day, it's an investment in you. It's basically trying to keep you moving in the right direction, keeping you healthy, so that way you can live a nice, active life. So,
Yeah, I mean, I 100% back that too. And like, I don't work in fitness anymore, but I would always recommend somebody to, and yeah, like you said, for the reasons of like injury prevention, to learning how to do the movements properly. And then also, again, for that consistency part, like you're not going to skip a doctor's appointment because they're expecting you at 3 o'clock. Like you're not going to skip a class that you signed up for or a personal training appointment or whatever it is. And that's one thing that I love about the fitness industry. And I don't know that I'll ever necessarily get back in it like full time at
yeah,
least.
yeah,
But that's one thing that I love about it, is because it's like all these people have to do is show up, and then like obviously they have to do the work, but you don't have to think. You just have to do
yeah,
it.
yeah,
And
exactly.
yeah. And it's I love working out. I feel like that's like one of the best things that I have ever found for myself. And it's like people are like, what are your hobbies? I'm like, lifting.
Do you want to talk about the gym for the next 30 minutes
Yeah,
or?
shopping. Am I supposed to have more than two
Yeah, is
hobbies?
that it? The people have more hobbies? Like what are they?
Yeah, I don't know enough time between those two. I don't have enough time for anything else.
Yeah, that's all it is. Yeah, that's
Um, okay. Any other fitness comments?
Um, yeah, I mean, I think I'm just gonna keep repeating it over and over again, because I'm a firm believer in consistency. And just go do it. Like I wear a lot of Nike. If you guys can't tell, I have my Nike everything literally head
Sponsored.
to toe, and it's such a great slogan. And all the people that I've trained, or people who know me in my personal life, like know that I live that. Like I really try and embody that as much as I possibly can, because it is hard, it is difficult, especially in the holiday season. Like it's difficult to try and get to the gym. It's hard to put yourself first, but it's super super crucial and super important to your own health, physical and emotional, just to take time for yourself and take care of your body, because we literally only get one. So it's a
Mhm.
matter of making sure that we keep that body as in great of shape as for as long as we can, no matter what age you are, just be on top of yourself so that way you can, live life to its fullest.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think too, like if someone is listening to this and they're like, okay, like I want to start somewhere, but I don't know where to start, like please reach out to me, and I can put like Dave's Instagram or his email address, reach out to Dave. And while neither of us are necessarily like in fitness, we could definitely point you in the right direction of who to contact, so that way you are in good hands and can really figure out how to get started, because there's so many people out there. Like just from working in the industry, we both know so many people. I don't know if you are interested in doing anything. Maybe Dave can help you. I don't know. Um,
No, I wouldn't mind at all if I will have Sally just put out my contact information. Like I said,
yeah.
it's not something that I do primarily. I love to do it. It's just
Mhm.
one of those things that is a very, very time consuming for myself and obviously with my family. I try and make sure like I keep a balance as much as I can. So I
Yeah. But we could at least point you in the right direction
absolutely,
if
absolutely.
neither of us can help you. So I'll definitely put our contact information. But yeah. Well, we could talk about fitness forever, and I feel like anything more than this, it would be like, okay, this is like too in
Yeah.
depth.
Don't worry, we'll circle back to it in like 15 minutes. Don't worry.
Probably. Okay, so the next topic I want to talk about, this is a topic that I have tried to do a better job of educating myself, but I know that I have so much to learn still, is social injustice.
Ooh, yeah.
And I know that you aren't super, super active on social media, but especially this year, you have kind of used your platform to use your voice and to share your personal experiences and help educate others. And I'm going to leave this really broad and open ended, because I know this is going to be a big educational moment for me.
Mhm.
I want to hear a little bit about your experiences in 2020, and then also what can people like me do who need more education, and what can we do on a daily basis to continue to be allies, continue to do our small part in making the world a better place. And then also, like, I think of your daughter, you said she's 7, like what can we be doing for the younger generations, so that way they grow up in a world that is different than the world that we live in. And I know I just put like 4 different things
Ah,
out
yeah,
there.
yeah, yeah.
And so I guess, like, I don't know, I'll let you take the floor.
So when it comes to, and thank you for like reaching out about this. This is kind of a thing that is definitely in this past year, like really hit home.
Mhm.
To give the audience and yourself a little bit more background, I am half black, I'm half white. My mom is a wonderful little white blonde lady. She is beautiful. My mom is definitely something else. And then my dad's black. My dad's a stud. My dad's a pretty big rock. So he's definitely something that's been important in my life. And I love the both of them. But growing up as a kid who was half black and half white, it's gonna sound really crazy, but I think we being in, not very dark, but also obviously not being white, it was kind of like, all right, this is like, for my friends, some of my friends back in the day was like, oh, token black guy, like, and I ran with that joke for a very long time, and even to this day, it doesn't really, offend me by any stretch of the imagination. I definitely in the past few years view that term a little bit more differently, only because it's just a cultural shock for people to, I would say, meet individuals like myself who are people of color, but just can have a normal conversation with. I think a lot of people can think that, being black is, strictly just the culture, being from the streets or being from the hood. Like it's not always that. Like those people can still equally be just like myself. There's
Yeah.
no difference between myself and any black person in the rest of the country. If anything, it's probably I feel more privileged in certain aspects because just the way my childhood was, just the way my upbringing and my education was, is I had better opportunities than kids who would live in, urban cities and stuff like that. So um to continue on, basically as I grew up, I really, found myself having both, having an array of friends. But I grew up in a predominantly, white neighborhood. It wasn't anything that, I really thought differently about. It really wasn't until I'd graduated high school and, left and, actually ventured into the real world that, I started noticing like people, as a young man, especially going from, 165 to 185, and, in a year, you're wearing a hoodie all the time, people tend to look at you a little bit differently, like, what's that guy looking, I guess I could appear scary at times. So I think the biggest thing for me is really just, don't judge a book, by its cover. I think a lot of people are, especially in today's society, are quick to do that
Mhm.
in regards to social injustice, but also at the same time, it's kind of like the cancel culture as well. Like, people are quick to do that as well. And there's a middle ground somewhere, being able to make sure that, we're not quick to judge, we're not quick to, completely just write somebody off that has a different opinion than us. Like, we need to be able to embrace differences. And I think that is probably the biggest thing when it comes to social injustice is, if you find yourself in a position where, even listening to this conversation, and you happen to disagree with something that I say, like, you know don't immediately be like, oh, okay, well, that's his opinion, that's obviously wrong. Like, listen to why I have this opinion. There is a massive amount of context behind that, and I think a lot of people don't tend to look at that context at all. And I know we were supposed to, narrow this in on social injustice, but I'm gonna kind of, broad
No,
this out
go
a
go wherever.
yeah, that's really the big thing is we have such a issue in our society, especially in America, where we just are so quick to, like I said, just go judge. Like, the
Mhm.
context is just not there. We're not listening to each other. So I know that can be a really big thing. So really, the how to help move that in the future is just have the hard conversations. Like, it's just do it. Like, it's difficult. Everyone I know knows someone at, whether it's family or friends, that, like, you obviously have different opinions, but you don't really, go and voice those kind of things. And I could say, um, have those hard conversations. If it's difficult to just sit down with the person and have those conversations, maybe instead just wait for that individual to say something that, you may not, agree with, or you may dislike, or maybe something that may offend someone. Like, then take that moment and take that opportunity to have those conversations. Because if you don't, I mean, that person could, have that conversation with the wrong person, and now that just blows into something different. Then you see it on the news, and it's just not good for anyone. So, um, but the biggest thing, like I said, is just having the conversation at that point. So, hopefully, I'm sorry to ramble. That's just
No, no, I mean, I love rambling. I'm really good at that. No, I think
cool.
that's a really good perspective too. And it just kind of goes to show, like you said, don't ever judge a book by its cover. And in the super broad sense, like not just on this topic, like you never know what's going on behind closed doors in someone's life. And like you don't know. And just because, and for me personally, like I know if I ever say something that is not right and not with ill intention, but I would want to be corrected and I would want to have those hard conversations because like I would never want to offend someone. But then yeah, there's other people, and like for me, like I definitely, not that I'm necessarily like proud of it, but I definitely consider myself privileged. Like my school, I mean, was, I would say, predominantly white. There is some diversity like in where I live, and especially like as the area grows there's more diversity, but I mean I definitely have mostly white friends and stuff. And this year was really eye-opening to me. And it's like, I mean, we all grow up wherever we grow up. We are go to school with whoever we go to school. So it's not necessarily like I'm like, oh, well, I don't like X group of people or whatever. But it was really eye-opening that like a lot of people live a much different life than I do. And I am very lucky. And like, I'm like, okay, well, I need to do what I can do to be part of the change. And I think a lot of times, like, people are like, well, I'm just one person. Like I'm nice to black people. Like I have black friends, but it's just like, well, like that's not enough.
Yeah. If that's your line opening up, like, oh, I've got black friends. Like, if you're ever finding yourself like defending it, it doesn't really look well at the end of the day.
Right.
So I just like to kind of inform people on that, because I hear that all the time. And even
Yeah.
like, even my wife's like, I've got black kids, and our kids are nowhere near my complexions. For the viewer, like, they're nowhere. They are probably they are a lot closer to the Sally than myself, but at the end of the
Mhm.
day, like, they're obviously still black. And that's one thing. She's like, I've got black kids, and I still, I have to, pay attention. And I think that's such a big thing is, not, getting defensive just doesn't look okay. Like that just says like you have it all. Like you are in complete understanding, like you are right there with it. And most of the times if you're not, in my shoes, and if you're not a person of color, like it's difficult for white people to understand it. Not impossible, but it is really difficult because it is something where you have never, probably in your life, gone down a street and, had people, move their purse on the opposite side of their other body, or
Mhm.
as this happens all the time. Maybe, this is probably a little bit more broad, but getting out of a car and, seeing somebody like, look at you, then lock their doors real quick. And that might not be a racial thing necessarily. It might be just a safety thing, but what leads to that train of thought? What
Mhm.
leads to that thinking? It's just a condition that, it's been happening over, hundreds of years. And here we are trying to, deal with it head on. So it is difficult, but I can tell you like it is really real, and it is unfortunate. And I don't judge anyone who has felt any ill way towards myself or just existing. I think my existence is just fine as it is. I try and make sure that I give back to people as much as I possibly can. And,
Mhm.
when I have these kind of events happen, like definitely in this past year have voiced my opinion a lot more. And I want to continue to harp on that kind of stuff a little bit more. But ultimately, like I can just say like it is tough for white people to understand where black people are coming from. And I don't want that to deter you from, continuing to learn about black education, because I think I know a lot of people will give me a little blast back on this, but I think white people learning about black education is the next step in order to move society forward. And the reasoning behind that is because I'm going to be 100% honest with you. I probably have learned more about black people in the last year than I've ever known, because it's not
Yeah.
something that, as I told you, like my education is, I would like to say is great. I just didn't have those things. I didn't know a lot about, black pioneers and people who in history have, gone against the grain. Obviously, we know like the Rosa Parks, we know the Martin Luther Kings, but we don't know about the Emmett Tills of the world. Like there
Mhm.
are a lot of individuals who were basically just involved in a hate crime and possibly hurt or killed in the last 60, 80 years alone. And that's just a big thing is, if I, as a black person, didn't know those things, I can't expect you as a white person to know those things. But I think bringing that education to white people will, this might sound bad, but make it more mainstream. This will
Mhm.
kind of allow people to kind of put themselves in different shoes and hopefully understand why they are learning it, not just to make it part of curriculum. Like it's more than that. It's trying to just make sure that the future is essentially ready to hopefully move past this, darkness that we've had in America. So
Yeah, absolutely. And I just lost my train of thought. I had my next point and I just lost it because I was listening. Um, yeah, I just think like there's so much for us to learn. Like I know for me personally, like I get nervous about saying the wrong thing. Oh, I remember what I was going to say. But on this topic, like I get nervous about saying the wrong thing because I don't want to offend anyone, and I think that is even something that like people can be educated on, is like to like and like to call you black is not offensive. Like
no,
that
no,
like and that's one thing that sounds so simple, and I know like there's probably people that are going to be like, Sally, you sound like an idiot saying that, but like that's real, and that probably goes to show my privilege. But like learning what you can say to have a conversation without offending someone, but then also if you do say something offensive, being open to learning that like, oh, that's not the right thing to say.
perfect.
And kind of going back to like talking about it is like people are scared. I think some people might be scared to talk about it because they don't want to say something offensive, but that's the problem, because it's like if you had an open mind and an open heart, and even if you do say the wrong thing, is at least you're talking about it, and then somebody can educate you on what to say or how to act or how you can help. And like I hope my point is getting across, but I mean it definitely just goes to show how much I have to learn.
Yeah,
And then also I think like just talking about it in anything, like in any topic of life, like just opening up the conversation makes it more mainstream, like you said, more normal. Like we could talk about that on any topic, like, mental health is something that I talk about a lot. And like, I'm like, not to make this about me or mental health, but it's something I can relate to, and saying like people are ashamed of mental health, but it's like we just need to keep talking about it, normalize it. Like we need to keep talking about and normalizing things that are like things that people of color struggle with and have faced, and the adversity that they face every single day. And it needs to be a constant conversation, because it's never not going to be a thing if
Yeah.
it's not talked about.
Yeah, exactly. And I can tell you, like I said, from this past year, like I'm not a big, as you know, I'm not a huge social media person at all. I'm on it, pretty frequently, but I don't really post a whole lot. And I think, especially just with, the the presidential election and, the murders and the injustice that we've seen just in this past year and a half alone, like it definitely, as a, I can wholeheartedly say, like I've every single day for the last year and a half, I've woken up black, and it sounds so crazy. It's like, oh, you are, but like, that's not my identity. Like I don't put my identity there,
Mhm.
and to go my whole life, not really being wholeheartedly affected by it. When I was affected by it, I kind of brush it off, but like now, like it's in my face, and like I have to deal with it because now this is a topic of conversation. People are very, very, opinionated on this, especially, and that's one thing where I have to, use my voice, and I have to be more active and, explaining these kind of things and having these conversations like we're having right now, because it is, if I don't talk about it, like I'm just gonna implode. Like I just,
Mhm.
it's so crazy to think like how this is, affected me so much, and it's just wild because it's not something that, like I said, it's not something that I wouldn't put a whole lot of thought into it. I'd rather just, kind of brush it off. I didn't want any part of it. But now that it's out there, now that people, are talking about it, and making it more of a conversation, like we're all involved in it, whether we like it or not. And that's just the thing, is I want people to understand that there have been a lot of times in my life that I've been extremely uncomfortable, even recently, um, and I don't want anyone to feel that way at all. And I think the discomfort, coming from people who I like to call it ignorant racism, where you don't know what you're saying necessarily. And like I said, it's not, I won't hold that against anyone, but I will say, take the moment to understand that your words really do affect, and they really do matter against people. So like saying things, in reference to black people, like even if it's a joke, like try and just, find another way to be funny. Like if anything, like, build a relationship with somebody, not based off of their skin color. I don't go around to white people that I know, I'm like, oh my God, I love your guy's hair because it's just not like crazy curly course like mine. Like it's just so nice. Like it's like I hear stuff like that, and I'm like, I've had people come up and like touch my hair, and they're like, it's almost like they're petting me like I'm a monkey, and I'm like, oh, okay, like
We
this
just do that now, I guess.
yeah, no,
No.
that's just the funny thing, is like it has happened, even like I said, even more recently in my life, and it's just like mind blowing, because it's like, what makes you think you can just go to someone that you may know a little bit and just like touch their hair, like, and it sounds so trivial, but it's like if you were viewed as a pet, you'd probably be a little like, can you not, like, it's just,
Yeah.
it's a respect kind of thing. So I think that can kind of get lost in translation. And that's just one example.
Yeah.
There's several. I'm not going to
But
sit here and list every single thing that I've been through. So
that is such a real example.
no, it
Like,
really,
and that, like, not that it's simple, but anyone can understand that example. And like that, like, I've never thought of it like that before. And like my mind is kind of blown right now.
yeah, it's that
That
simplistic. It's really that simplistic. And that's how, like that light bulb moment that you just had, like it's just because I had that conversation. Had I not said anything about that, you would have never even known about that. Like, and that's the thing, is like we take, and I'm gonna, bunch myself in that group, is we take, some of these differences, and we highlight that. We're like, oh, like it's so nice that you're different. Like, who are you saying that for? Are you saying that for the person, or are you saying that for yourself because they're not like you? And that's
Mhm.
just the thing, is like we need to embrace differences in a different way. We need to not, highlight that about somebody. So whether, you're black or white, or whether you're straight or gay, like all of those things, we need to stop. It's nice to acknowledge it and, confirm it and make sure, we are being respectful about those things. But honestly, like I don't think we should be highlighting those type of things, over and over again. Like my hair, yes, my hair is different than yours. My skin is different than yours. I run fast, but not because I'm black. It's because I work out a lot. Like I get you hear all the crazy stereotypes, and it's just wild that we view stereotypes and we know what they are, and we think that, oh, I'm so sorry, that it's like acceptable to you know oh, because it's a stereotype, it's definitely up for grabs. Like, no, let's
Mhm.
just leave the stereotypes, let's just let them be. They're stereotypes for a reason. So
Yeah, and I think like you said, there's one thing to acknowledge differences out of respect, like,
yeah,
but but then to point them out is just like, is that part of the problem? Is like making the point that we're different when at the end of the day we are the exact same. And I'm white, I'm a white female, but I could be a terrible human being,
yeah,
and you're a black man, but you could be way better than me. So it's like,
it's
like
all,
isn't is that that's part of the problem, is saying that we're different when we're not, like
yeah,
we
exactly. And
and it's
that's we just need to embrace that. We just need to take those differences, and we just need to say, like, all right, even though we have these differences, we have these different upbringings, we have all these things, like we're still the same person. Like we biologically, there's no difference other than, I'm a male, you're a female. Like that's all it is at the end of the day. That doesn't, say my worth is better than yours. I really get pressed about, listening to people, talk about Black Lives Matter. Like, I know the opposite end of that is, well, all lives matter. And I agree, but ultimately at the same exact time, like, by you saying that statement, and I have like tried to really pick this apart, and you know how I am when it comes to like understanding like arguments on both sides, is at the end of the day, the issue of Black Lives Matter is becoming diminished when you say, my life, but my life matters too, is you're turning that and making it about yourself, and you're making it a very selfish thing.
Mhm,
And that for me personally is where I draw the line, is where you make yourself more than someone else. And
mhm,
that is where I have a problem with. It doesn't matter what race you are. I could care less. Like when you try to make yourself more than someone else, like your worth is better than the next person, you have to understand we are all men, we are all women, we are the same exact person. What makes you any better than the next person? What makes your life more valuable than this person, CEO who makes this much money as compared to, a grunt worker that makes, obviously that at the end of the day, they still exist in this world. They're still people, they're still human. It doesn't matter how much influence that they have at the end of the day, the worth is still the same. Every life should be considered, but ultimately at the end of the day, it cannot be my life is worth more than yours. Like
mhm,
we have to be selfless. If we are not selfless, we will not. I fear for the world that my daughter grows up, because I'm trying to teach her that now every single day, is just be selfless, do something for someone else. And I hope that I embody that, and I know that you do the same thing, and I hope that we can just influence people to, have that train of thought. Because if we would, we wouldn't be having arguments about, well,
mhm.
do Black Lives Matter? Like, yeah,
Yes.
we kind of do. We kind of do.
Yeah.
So that's just the thing, is we're just, Michael Che said it best, like, we are fighting for matters. We are fighting as Black people just to matter. And I laughed at that, but it's true in a very dark sense. Like
Mhm,
Black people are literally just trying to be like, hey, we're here and our lives really count. Like, don't kill us. Like
mhm.
it's real. Like it is very, very real. And like I said, I hate to get so polarizing and crazy about this topic, but it is true. Like I would defend you just as the same as I would defend any person of color. Like it makes no difference for me. Like I need to make sure at the end of the day, like I know that you're going to be fine. If you needed, I'd be there. But for Black people, that attention and care isn't the same. And I think that's the difference between Black Lives Matter and All Lives Matter. So
Mhm. Well, and, like, I think, like, saying Black Lives Matter is not saying white lives don't matter. And
Yeah,
I think like that's one thing that like I when it was said like that, it was like, well, duh. Yeah, okay, yes, I'm fully on board with this. Like, it's saying Black Lives Matter does not mean other people don't matter. Like,
exactly,
it,
exactly. I hate that, stigmatism, but that is what it is right now. Like white people really do, they feel offended because it's not about them. And I
mhm,
understand. Like I can get behind that. Like I get like it's not, fair to be like, oh, well, it's not, well, what about us? And I'm like, that's the point. That's
yeah,
that's literally the point. Like I can't spin this any other way to make people understand, but that is really the point, and that's
yeah,
that's how we feel. And like I said, it's probably been more recently for me that's how I feel. And it's not that I don't feel like, my life matters. Like I told you, I try not to wrap my identity up in my race, but ultimately at the end of the day, like it definitely has had its moments where it has turned people off from me. It has inhibited me in certain aspects of my life. And I've never let that hold me down by any stretch of the imagination. But I also, who knows what my opportunities would look like, at the end of the day, if I didn't have the color of my skin. And
hmm
it is unfortunate, but it is, like I said, it's a matter of life, and it's something that I deal with. And, I don't wish that on anyone else. So the best that I can do is just educate at this point. So.
yeah, and it's very real. And one thing that like I have so much respect for you, and I encourage you and appreciate you using your voice is because you are you come from a place of understanding and education, and I think that's one thing that I really respect. And I'm not saying other people wouldn't be like this, but like you said, like you're not going to fault anyone for not knowing or for saying the wrong thing, but you're going to try and come from a place and say like, okay, well, here's how it feels to be me in this situation, and here's why what you said was offensive. And I just feel like that is so important, and I respect that, because I know that if I say the wrong thing, you're going to say, hey Sally, that wasn't right, here's how you can correct it, or here's how you can switch your mind. And I just feel like that is, again, going back to people just starting to talk about it, I respect that so much. And I know that like while I have so much to learn, you're going to help me in a way because you want to help me, and you want to help, not that it's about me at all, that sounds really bad, but you want to help people be part of the change.
Yeah, all
um,
of us. It's all of us.
and yeah, and so I think like your voice is so important, everyone's voice is so important, but I respect you for that. And I mean, I love being vulnerable, and or not, I
No, no.
don't love it, but I try and embody that, and I appreciate that you do the same.
Yeah, yeah. No, no. Like I said, I thank you for the opportunity. Like this is definitely something big, and I think, it is a two-way street at the end of the day. Like I think, not to, be so negative for, this last 10 minutes, but I have had a lot of people reach out to me and have these exact conversations, and people ask me, how can I do better? What can I do? And I have a difficulty answering that question sometimes, because it's hard. I'm not where you are. Like I can say, I would feel better if you did this, did that, but ultimately at the end of the day, like I also have to pull my own weight. And I think if there are any, Black audience members listening to this right now, I think the biggest thing is just trying to educate. Like don't get behind the whole cancel culture thing just because, a white person says something that obviously is, might come from ignorance. Like there needs to be a teachable moment there. There needs to be the accountability needs to be goes both ways, but ultimately like we as Black people need to make sure that we are having these conversations, and we're not immediately going to cancel culture right away.
Mhm.
I mean, I'm sure we've all seen the videos of like a Karen somewhere in the world, like, and I think, that exposes people a lot. But I think if we're being realistic, having a reaction, like you say something to a Black person, and immediately a Black person just starts like just gets they're like bewildered, because it's like, how could you say something so ridiculous to me? Then a phone comes out, they start recording you, and what, now you're like backpedaling and trying to figure things out. Instead of doing stuff like that, I think we need to take better action and, have a conversation, try to have a conversation with a person like that, as opposed to immediately going nuclear and making them viral, because that doesn't really, that exposes those things. But now those people who have gone viral for those kind of things, like where's the teachable moment? Like, where do you think they're going to learn from that, moment in time? They're probably not. They're going to be completely turned off and be like, forget that. Like, why do I even care about this? Like, people are coming after me, sending me death threats, and so I
Yeah.
think it's a matter of it. Like I said, it does definitely go both ways. So I don't want people to think that, it's only white people that need to do the work. It's also us Black people as well. We need to do a better job at educating and not making it a big spectacle, because I think that can get lost in translation. There are some people that I'm sure in the world deserve that exact viral moment, but I do kind of feel bad after watching some of those things, because it's like, yeah,
I
that
know.
could have went totally different just by being a better communicator at the end of the day. So
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, I appreciate you so much and having this conversation. Like I said, I have so much to learn and I am so far from perfect, and I just appreciate, being able to have this conversation. And because I assume there's only other people in the same shoes as me that can learn from hearing us talk and hearing you talk and kind of some of your experiences. So I
yeah.
really, I thank you for that.
Yeah, no, no, no. Thank you for the opportunity. Like I said, this has been a lot of fun. So
Yeah. What time is it? Oh, wow. 10:53. Oh, we've been chatting. That went by so quickly.
we
Oh,
knew it was gonna happen too, but it just, I didn't even look at time until just now. So
yeah. Well, I also thought, I was like, oh, well, we're less than 40 minutes because Zoom's going to cut me off.
yeah.
Um, yeah, but well, I guess we can wrap up there. Do you have any other closing comments? I appreciate you having this conversation with me.
Yeah, yeah, no. Honestly, just for supporters, if you guys have made it this far, for Sally, just, try to subscribe. Like, really, she's got a lot of wonderful things to say. She's a super awesome person. Our relationship, as you know, is very, very tight. And it's just because you're such an open person, you're not afraid to, be yourself. So I think that is why I'm doing this with you right now, because I really do believe, I know there's the brand, but you are the brand at the end of the day. So I'm thankful to have you as a friend
Yeah.
and have this opportunity to kind of talk. So thank you for giving me the platform. So I appreciate
Yeah, well, thank you for your constant support. Dave is one of those people where I can go to and be like, Dave, I kind of cut myself off there. I'm really good at that. You were one of the first people, I think, like when I wrote out that blog post, starting to like really want to share my story. I think you were, if not the very first, Melissa might have been the first. If you or her was the first and second. And I feel like, and like, you're just one of those people where I'm like, I know he's going to give it to me real and he's going to have my back. And I'm so thankful for, this friendship because
it. Yeah, awesome. Oh,
um,
I'm glad I could do that for you. Like I said, you make it easy.
yeah.
I've had hard things in my life. Lifting weights is hard, running is hard consistently, but being your friend has been pretty easy for the most part. So
Well, thank you, Dave. Thank you so much. And I appreciate your time.
alrighty. Thank you so much, Sal.